he probably did not know much about Van Gogh. You have to remember that Van Gogh died in 1890. This was completed in 1893. So there is not really any evidence at all that Edward Munch had known about Van Gogh's life and about his anxiety and about all the other issues that he had. Hi, this is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Today we're going to talk about Edward Munch, who is a Norwegian artist. And in particular, I'm going to answer a question that I saw out on the internet. And many of you know that many times with my blogs and other things, I'll answer some questions. And one of them is The Scream by Edward Munch, his famous painting, is it based on a screaming Van Gogh? And the answer to that is there is no evidence at all that Edward Munch's painting The Scream is about Vincent Van Gogh's life and anxiety. In fact, when the famous painting was completed in 1893, he probably did not know much about Van Gogh. You have to remember that Van Gogh died in 1890. This was completed in 1893. So there is not really any evidence at all that Edward Munch had known about Van Gogh's life and about his anxiety and about all the other issues that he had. In fact, we know from this painting that he completed the Scream in 1893. And at the time, Van Gogh was not well known or as famous as he is today. They had never met in person, and it was not until later in his life that Edward Munch would have even learned about Vincent Van Gogh and his artwork. He lived in Norway, so it's unlikely they would have ever crossed paths. And we also know that the Scream is actually based upon that Edward Munch felt like he was down in Oslo and was down there on the water area, and he saw this, this bright sunset, and it made him feel like he wanted to scream. And that's why he painted this picture. So this picture was more about himself and his own anxiety than it was really about anyone else's. This is really a painting that he painted. The Scream is influenced by symbolism. It's a symbolism movement. It's not even a post-impressionism movement, which is what Van Gogh was doing. And it actually, as we said, was painted in Norway, so it's a very iconic Norwegian piece. But what's interesting about this is Edward Munch and Van Gogh actually had quite a few similarities, even though there's no evidence the two ever met, that they even knew much about each other. And if they probably had met and probably had worked together as artists, they maybe would have found that they had quite a bit in common because their art was quite similar. Some of their similarities were that they each broke away from traditional styles, and they had unique styles and personal touches to their paintings. They both suffered hostility, towards their work as they left people. There were people that didn't quite understand the type of art they were producing. And, they were both, eager to experiment with many new artistic styles. They produced unique works of art. And their artistic mission was to, modernize art radically. So they had sort of that similarity together, that they both wanted to modernize it. They had very emotional art. Both Van Gogh and Munch had very, emotionally charged art. They had strong emotions about their art. They showed human emotions in their artwork, showing the human existence of love, fear, spirituality, and even death. They were both, profoundly human in that Van Gogh and Munch produced profoundly human art. The work is very complex at the same time, so is human existence. They use colors, and usually bold colors, to get their artistic subject matter across. Even though that they are both two very different artists, and this piece of art is not based upon Van Gogh's life, they still did have a lot of similarities. And many people have felt that if they had met and worked together, they would have maybe had a better working relationship than especially Vincent Van Gogh and Paul Gauguin, who, as we know, had a working relationship which was just disastrous for especially Vincent Van Gogh. So maybe if they had met in person, Edward Munch and Vincent Van Gogh would have maybe been friends. They would have maybe had some good collaboration together. They maybe would have understood each other better. We don't know because this never has happened, but we do know that the Scream that Edward Munch produced is not based upon the anxiety that Van Gogh felt in his life, and that in fact it is more of his own self-portrait of him and his own feeling that he felt when he was seeing a sunset walking along the walk there in Oslo, Norway. This is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Well, we're going to put a link into our blog post, which is about, is the scream based on a screaming Van Gogh? So if you'd like to read more, you can read more about that. We'd like to thank you so much for being part of our community, and thank you for listening to us. Thank also for our team who helps put this together, especially Rico. We want you to know that we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.